Sundagen. Where neck heavier through that. Heavier through that. The petty will flick.
Great sporting events make great stories. On Discovery Plus, watch Lycra Warriors battle.
It has been a blockbuster.
Hot shots fire.
The legend.
Sharpshooters strike.
Ronnie O'Sullivan is in seventh heaven.
And thrill seekers zoom. There's live sport for everyone on Discovery Plus.
Welcome everyone, a very good evening to the Ponds Forge International Centre for what should be, could be, a really interesting contest between two former UK champions. It is Jimmy White, yet to lose a frame in the qualifying competition of this year's Cazoo UK Championship, up against Stephen Maguire, the 2004 champion. Maguire, obviously, his favourite, but the way Jimmy White's performed thus far, well, who's to say that the 60-year-old can't pull off a shock and continue to maybe take his place in the final stages, the last 32 in York, which begins at the weekend. Joining me in commentary for the first four frames of this best of 11 contest is David Hendon, and I think you'll agree, David, that Maguire has to be regarded as the favourite. But you can never write off Jimmy White. If he finds some inspiration, who knows?
Absolutely. I mean, here he is 30 years on from winning the title. And as you say, he's not lost a frame yet. 2 6-0 wins. Victor Sarkis, new player from the Americas. And Mitchell Mann, of course, he's played at the Crucible. To beat him 6-0, that was a terrific win. One thing with Jimmy, you know, he will always have hope in his heart that he will produce a strong performance. And you just never know. It's a match that I know a lot of people are looking forward to. Two former winners. It's got to be said, though, Maguire's record in the UK Championship is superb. He's a winner. He's twice runner-up. He's someone who loves the tournament. So he's quite right that he starts favourite. But let's see as the players enter the arena. Best of 11.
Yes, when he won the UK in 2004, he beat David Gray in the final. Didn't just beat him, he demolished him by 10 frames to 1. And earlier that year, in Malta, Maguire captured his first ever world ranking title, winning the European Open. And who did he beat in the final? A certain Jimmy White by 9 frames to 3. So there's plenty of history and plenty of mutual respect. Of course, 7 other matches for you this evening. We'll keep you right up to date with those. There will be a competition as well for a couple of tickets to the final stages of the Cazoo UK Championship in York next week. But first, let's concentrate on this opening frame.
Steve Maguire to get us underway. Of course, he's dropped out of the top 16. He's actually dropped down to number 25, which seems a little on the low side for him. But of course, he had those Tour Championship points coming off last year, which, or earlier this year actually, which caused him to plunge down the list a little bit. And Maguire's form hasn't been great actually this season. First round loser at the European Masters, British Open and English Open. So 3 tournaments he didn't earn any ranking points from. Northern Ireland he got to the last 16. And Scottish Open he's qualified for. I mean, it seems odd he'd had to qualify at all. It's his home event. But anyway, he will be in Edinburgh in a few weeks' time. But overall, his form hasn't been that great. So he's looking, of course, in this tournament, which is a big money event, he's looking to really turn things around.
if you're a Jimmy White fan, of which there are many, you'll be hoping for some encouragement when it comes to the head-to-head record between these two. Well, I'm afraid there isn't a great amount. Maguire leads 7-2 in overall meetings. And the two victories for White were a couple of decades ago in the pre-qualifiers for the Scottish Masters in 2000 and then in qualifying for the Thailand Masters in 2001. Ever since, Maguire has held the upper hand.
Yeah, their records actually in this tournament are very similar. They've both won it once, they've both been runner-up twice, and they've both reached 4 semi-finals. Jimmy White, in fact, was a semi-finalist on his debut in 1981. 60 years of age, the circuit's oldest professional, and still one of the most enthusiastic.
I remember that really well. I was a university student at the time, and it was so exciting to see White play so well. And I recall the vibe in the early 80s. It really was a case of, it's not a matter of if Jimmy wins the World Championship, but when. Sadly, it never happened. Good start, though, and already receiving cheers and urges on from the crowd.
Yes, there's a constituency of snooker fans who have never left Jimmy's side, still hoping for good things for him.
I was thinking, you know, Dave, we've talked about his unblemished frames record in this tournament so far, and you've mentioned who he's beaten to be here. This is the start of the qualifying round 3. And it's history repeating itself, because in 1990, in the UK Championship, in his first 2 matches, back then it was best of 17 frames, he also started out with 2 whitewashes. Remarkable, really, considering the length of the matches. He beat both Les Dodd and Peter Francisco 9-0, 9-0.
Well, he just straddles so many eras, Jimmy, doesn't he? Apologies if you're hearing a little bit of noise. I don't know whether the referee's microphone is not working, but hopefully that'll be sorted out.
Yeah, the referee is Micah Kessler from Germany. For many a year, White was regarded as the best player with the rest ever. I think he's been superseded in recent times, but he's still pretty handy. And he's not been deserted by Q Power either.
Well, Alan McManus put it best. He said when he first turned pro, Alan, so we're going back 30 years just about, he said you'd never see Jimmy White in the practice room. He said now you get to a tournament, you never see him out of it. He sort of decided to really dedicate himself. Of course, he does have the invitational card to continue his career, but every now and again you see him play really well and you think, yeah, he's still got something there. He beat Wan Si Jun in that qualifier with the 130 odd break in the decider to qualify for Belfast.
There's been debate, should White continue to have a wild card? Well, he's much loved, he creates a great amount of interest, and that's the whole purpose of a wild card. So I would say, yes.
You can contact us during the coverage. Stephen Hallworth will be with us later on as well, and we'll have a few guests dropping in during the evening, so you can contact us, myself directly, at Dave Hendon on Twitter, at Dave Hendon, at Stephen Hallworth, that's Stephen Hallworth, and World Snooker Tour at We Are WST. So at We Are WST, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. Any particular memories of Jimmy in this tournament? Obviously 92 was the big year, but he was runner-up to Steve Davis in a final, actually, maybe not talked about enough, 1987. That was such a great match. I vaguely remember watching it, but certainly if you look at the stats from it, it was a terrific match. And 91 he lost to John Parrott before beating Parrott in 92 to win it. So far so good though. He's looking pretty sharp early on. He's coming into the match, of course, off the back of 2 really good wins.
Also, we will have a competition for you later on this evening. We will give you the question in frame 3 and then let you know who's won it towards the end of the match. The prize for the competition, real incentive, 2 tickets for the Tuesday night session, Tuesday the 15th of November at the Barbican next week.
So the break ends at 46, but as I say, he looks sharp there. Problem is these days, you know, 46-point lead with nothing safe is not worth a lot, really. Steve Maguire, though, he's, as I say, talking about the season he's had, he's looking for a bit of a turnaround. He was runner-up most recently at the UK to Ding, a terrific final in 2019. Quarter-finalist at the Crucible, just up the road here in the spring, but has not started the new campaign well.
Well, that wasn't the best of kisses. At least it's retained the cue ball in mid-table. Maguire's always been a very attacking player, but I think the cut back on the brown, especially not being warmed up, is a little too much to ask. So get in behind the green and wait.
Steve Maguire won.
I think Maguire is in a group of players, quite a number of them actually, who some people regard as top 16 players, not inside the top 16.
The thing is, there's about 30 of them, isn't there? You know, there's plenty playing here. It's harder than ever to get in and stay in the 16. Lorenzo has asked Phil, who do you think has the most Q power, Jimmy White or Judd Trump?
Oh, Trump. I don't think it's even close. I think he's got the most Q power I think I've ever seen from anyone. But in his day, White was the Trump, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at some footage of Jimmy in the 80s, the way he would entertain, particularly at the end of frames, exactly what Trump does now. And that's why he still has this deep reservoir of support. Charles asks, do you think the UK Championship should return to the longer frame format to help its wider public perception as the second most demanding Triple Crown event? Because it used to be, going back over a decade now, best of 17s. We did answer this earlier, me and Stephen Holworth. A lot of people do like the longer matches, it's true, but in terms of the paying public, the good thing about best of 11s is you do see a finish every session. You're not just watching the first 8 frames. And in terms of perception, well, frankly, more important is what the people who pay the money want, the broadcasters, the sponsors, and the ticket buying public. And the best of 11s, I think next week will be popular. There may be a case for extending the event in its latter stages, so maybe quarterfinals onwards there's a case maybe for longer matches, but then of course you'd have to obviously rejig the format a little to get all the matches in.
Yeah, I agree with everything that David said there. What I will say is I think the format this year, seeding the top 16 players in the world through to the last 32, is definitely an improvement. They are the players, the stars who move the needle, and having them in York, guaranteed, is a good move. The flat draws we've seen over the last few years in the majority of tournaments are all very well, but I also like the old style structured draws, such as you have in the World Championship and here. Has there been an issue there? I think the microphone of Micah Kessler is down because I couldn't hear what she was saying. Even when she's calling out the scores, I can't hear it. She definitely called a foul shot there because 4 points have gone on Stephen Maguire's ledger. From White's expression, I don't think he was entirely in agreement.
Well, looks like he's taking this red on to the middle. Big shot this. Oh, well, he's unlucky if he's not on the black there, but it's a very confident shot. He might have to take on a tough blue to continue. See, not on the black, so get the feeling if he's taken the red on, he's going to take this blue on, isn't he?
He doesn't shirk, always takes on the attacking option when it's in the bounds of good sense. But when you play that kind of game, you have to be accurate. I think that was one of the great problems for Stephen Hendry towards the end of his, well, first career. He's back, of course. He was always such an attractive, fluent player, and he wasn't prepared to compromise and play a little bit of safety. So as his game deteriorated slightly and he was taking on the same amount of pots, he was leaving himself vulnerable.
Well, Maguire, that's how he plays, as you say, but he didn't get the blue. So what a golden chance for Jimmy White. He's already got a useful lead here. And this is a little test, I think. If he doesn't win the frame here, then it's a massive early blow. But if he does, well, he'll have played 13, won 13 in terms of frames in this year's UK Championship. Definite signs this season that he has been playing well. Certainly in these qualifying events. So this is effectively frame ball, 54 to the good, 59 on. Made a useful 46 to get the lead. Maguire potted the good red, but missed the do-or-die blue. And Jimmy White, 41 years on from his first appearance in the UK Championship, is going to win the first frame.
Not his best, but it mattered not. 62 ahead with 43 on. There's no way back. I'm pretty sure that Maguire will remain in his seat. Indeed he has. And so the veteran Jimmy White, the oldest player on the tour, remains undefeated frame-wise in this Cazoo UK Championship. After two 6-0 wins to open up, he takes a 1-0 lead over Stephen Maguire. And his legion of fans around the world will be absolutely delighted with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a full house here, as you can see, but this is the most people we've had in all day, and they're watching Jimmy White. There's some questions come in while we've been watching that frame, Phil. Satjinder asks, if Stephen Maguire had the temperament of John Higgins, would he have won more? Well, I think if a lot of players had the temperament of John Higgins, they would have won more. I'm not crazy about talking about players have underachieved or should have won more, because if Stephen Maguire, say, he'd won 4 more ranking titles, other people would have won 4 less. So we'd be saying the same about them. They're not easy to win. He's won 6 ranking events. That's a good haul. Most people would say that's a good haul, but there have been times where you feel maybe he could have pressed on when he won the UK title. Indeed, he looked like he might, you know, Ronnie O'Sullivan said he would dominate the sport. That didn't happen. It's not all about temperament necessarily, but yeah, John Higgins is a very high watermark, isn't he, to aim at. But thanks for your question. And Adam asks, why do you think the class of 92 keep winning, especially Ronnie O'Sullivan? It's a similar sort of thing, really. Why haven't the others dominated? Are the class of 92 too good? Well, in a way, yes, is the answer. There's 3 very special players who've maintained their focus and their determination and their form, and indeed their eyesight. And Ronnie O'Sullivan, of course, last night won the Champion of Champions once again.
Just going back to the Maguire question, let's put it this way. When he won the UK Championship in 2004, after winning the European Open earlier in the year, if someone had said to me 18 years later he would have ranking titles numbering 6, I would have thought that would have been very low on my estimation at the time. But as Dave said, to win 6 is a major achievement. So it all depends on perspective.
The only person who can really answer the question is him. And Maguire's a pretty straightforward character. He probably would say he should have won more. But that's for him to say, really, no one else. Anyway, he's got a chance here. And in it goes. So let's see if he can put something together. In terms of the UK Championship, there's only 2 players who've made more centuries than Stephen Maguire in the history of the tournament. And they're the big 2, Ronnie O'Sullivan and Stephen Hendry. So Maguire's made 92 centuries in this tournament. This is a tournament, for whatever reason, he just always seems to do well in. And he'll have those good memories. OK, we're not in York at the moment, but in general, good memories of the tournament. Another one of those players, Phil, if he qualified and you're a top 16 seed, you do not want him.
6.
Absolutely not. Yeah, when you told me that stat about Maguire with the centuries in this tournament, I think you told me about that at the weekend when we were up at Bolton. I was a little surprised, actually. But when you think about it, given the success he's had and the amount of matches he's played, I shouldn't have been that surprised.
7.
when Stephen Hendry was zooming up the all-time century chart and then basically taking it over in the 90s. I always remember Willie Thorne saying to me, yeah, but the reason he's there, he played so many more matches than the rest of us. Well, the reason was he won so many more matches than the rest of them. And of course, Maguire gained an awful lot from in his youth practicing with Stephen Hendry on a pretty much daily basis. It was a tough school, but it harned him up.
I've had a tweet from someone watching in Virginia in the US. The clue was afternoon, everyone. It told you they're not in the UK. So I've missed Jimmy's previous 2 matches, so looking forward to a great match. So you see, Jimmy does have fans all around the world.
And here's a segue. Stephen Maguire is a proud Scot. Another proud Scot who can wield a cue is eagle-eyed Jason Shaw, the great pool player from Glasgow, now based in Connecticut. And at the weekend, he won the International Open pool 9-ball in Norfolk, Virginia.
Well, we've got another blue coming up. He missed one in frame 1, of course. Fancy more for this one. Slightly closer to the blue for a start. Oh, but it stayed out. So it's a total of 2 missed blues so far. And Maguire, this is where you always slightly get concerned because he can get quite frustrated when things go wrong. So just needs to simmer down. But well, might be another costly miss. Oh, it's not going to be too costly, it would seem. Going to have to be a safety here.
By the way, this afternoon, qualifying round 2 was supposed to be completed here, but there are 3 matches yet to finish from this afternoon's session. It was slow going on certain tables, I can tell you. Scott Donaldson and Ashley Hugill only got to 4-4.
Yeah, first available table tonight, they'll be back on.
Also suspended, Joe O'Connor. He leads Rod Lawler 5-4. And Craig Steadman and Ian Burns 5-4 to Burns.
That was not a good shot, was it, from Stephen Maguire? Maybe still a bit of hangover from the blue, or the 2 blues he missed. So what a chance for Jimmy White here. Here's one for you, Phil. This is a niche stat. He's the only player on that UK Championship trophy who's also got his nickname on it. On the trophy it says Jimmy Whirlwind White. Don't know why, but if you examine the trophy closely, there it is.
More knowledge than a stat, really, that. I didn't know. I did not know. Of course, he played in 1 Masters, changed his name to James Brown. I was writing for the Times when that tournament was on, and I rang the sports desk there and said, look, what do you want me to refer to him as, James Brown or Jimmy White? And the guy there said, what do you think? And of course it was Jimmy White. I think he had some temporary sponsorship from a brown sauce manufacturer.
Well, about James Brown, he didn't feel good for long because I think he got beat. But be feeling better here. This is an opening, and he's seen Maguire make a few errors. That last safety shot was not good. Now, surely he's not finished right in the one spot he can't pot anything. I mean, you look at all the reds there. You think he's got to get on one of them, but it looks like he's on nothing.
I think the red to the left of the pink as we are viewing the table will pot to middle, but it's a tricky one.
Yeah, should have been on something easier. So can he recover the position here? He can. Holds his hand up, but take it when it's going, Jimmy. A lot's gone against you over the years. Alan Murray on Twitter asks, do you think we'll get some new winners this season? What are the chances of Jack Lazowski winning something? Well, I think we'd all love to see Jack win a tournament. You know, he's a very attractive player to watch, plays the game in an attacking way, very much like the man at the table here, but it's hard, isn't it? You know, because to win a tournament, invariably you're going to have to beat one or two of the real established winners, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Judd Trump, Neil Robertson, Mark Selby. That's the big four. You might have to beat a couple of those. And of course, he's lost 3 finals to Trump. He's lost 2 to Robertson and 1 to Selby. So that final hurdle of getting past those guys, it's tough. But it can be done. You know, players can break through. Zhao Xingtong won 2 titles last season. Meanwhile, well, he goes back to his seat knowing that really was a golden scoring chance.
And I think part of the problem there, he got himself out of rhythm by playing a couple of inaccurate positional shots, and in the end he seemed a little lost.
Apologies if you can hear that interference. Hopefully that will be dealt with.
The one good thing is the players can't hear it just as well, actually. There we go. Silence is golden.
The onus, though, is on Maguire here to finally get going, because that could easily have been 2-0. Carl asks, do you think a player should be able to take as long as he likes on a shot? I do, that's snooker. Well, forever's a long time, isn't it, Carl? I mean, within reason, I think it's fine to play at your own pace, and we saw this morning a clash of stars between Tep Charanu and Martin O'Donnell, but as long as he likes, does that mean 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? I think there has to be a limit. Obviously, there are certain shots that need a lot of looking at, and there are certain shots that players really know they need to get on with. And it's interesting when we're at the shootout with the shot clock, a lot of the more methodical players suddenly manage to play quickly.
The lengthiest time I've ever seen a player take over one individual shot was Mark Selby. 6 minutes. Just couldn't make up his mind. He was on the horns of a dilemma. But that really is unusual. One thing that Maguire has never been: slow, or indeed defensive. He plays the game correctly, and at his best he plays it brilliantly.
20.
So he missed that blue and
28.
went to his seat looking furious, but Jimmy White did not make very much at all from the opening. And this is the chance maybe Maguire's been looking for, just to settle into this match. It's a big match for him as well. It's a big tournament, and if he loses it, he gets no ranking points. So he's 25 in the world now. Obviously, you know, he doesn't want to be dropping any further. This tournament, with its big money, is a chance to really start to rise again. But firstly, he's got to win this match to get anything out of it.
By the way, the annoying noise you can hear is definitely the referee's microphone, because it always starts when she moves. Not her fault. Oh, but that was Maguire's fault. What a bad miss on the verge of securing the frame. He will be seething.
Yeah, it was another frame that the script seemed to be written for, but the script's been ripped up. That's good. That's worked out nicely.
The blue being respotted could provide a hindrance, though. That's why the spider is needed, and from this kind of distance, this is a real examination. Just kept it simple, and as a result, sacrificed position.
Yeah, it did make a difference, and it's been that sort of frame, I think. So, having to wait for another chance. The question here from the Honest Scribbler: when will we see another tournament in the southwest, specifically Devon or Cornwall? Phil will remember the British Open at Plymouth, but there's a wonderful location also in Cornwall. Well, yeah, it was a lovely part of the world. And we've seen some dramatic matches there. Nigel Bond, John Higgins springs to mind. But venues, getting venues and hiring venues, it's not straightforward at all. It's not just a question of we want to go to a certain place, let's go there. There's all sorts of things to take into consideration. But I know there's a big community down that way who would love to see another tournament.
Yeah, we had some terrific events in Plymouth. Funnily enough, I will recall the match down there between Jimmy White and Dominic Dale. And if those two win this evening, they'll play in the next round here. I remember that match because, in their wisdom, the tournament organisers decided to put Jimmy on an outside table and put another match on the main table, and it spectacularly backfired because hardly anybody was watching the main table and everyone was watching Jimmy. As he left a gap, I think he might have done, you know. Well, surely he's going to take advantage of this chance and equalise. By taking the brown, he would then only need the yellow.
Yes, so Maguire, relief is surely the only emotion here, really. Could have easily been 2-0 down. Jimmy White will look back on missed opportunities.
10.
This is the first frame he's lost then in the 14 he's played in this year's UK Championship.
There it is. It is official. Stephen Maguire equalises against Jimmy White, although it wasn't one visit snooker, was it? Maguire still trying to settle down in the match, and he will be relieved that his mistakes in the second frame ultimately were not punished. Now, David Hendon has popped out, and joining me in the commentary box for a short interview is a gentleman who 25 years ago made quite an impact just up the road at the Crucible. Quarter-finalist in the 1997 World Championship, Lee Walker.
Cheers, Phil. You're making me feel really old now.
Yeah, and of course you're the reigning World Seniors champion as well. Again, the title was captured here in Sheffield. There's something about this place that agrees with you.
Yeah, you're making me feel even older now. Thanks, Phil. I'm glad I come in here now.
So what is it like when you're playing at the Crucible and the juices are flowing and the crowd's all involved and you realise you're at the best venue there is?
Yeah, as in, when you're playing snooker, nothing beats playing at the Crucible. I'm sure if you're a footballer, you always wanted to play at Wembley. If you're, and as a snooker player, I never got to play at the old conference centre, at Wembley, where they played the Masters. But for me, nothing beats the Crucible. And even though it wasn't the main event, playing in the Masters last year, when I ended up, I had to play Stephen Hendry, Ken Doherty, and then Jimmy White in the final. So. That's an experience I'll never forget.
Came back well against Jimmy, I recall.
Yeah, I seem to be down in against Ken in the quarters, 2-0 down, 3-0 down against Dave Lilly in the semis, and 4-2 down in the final against Jimmy. So I think it must have been written on the stars that I win that, I think.
Now, as World Seniors champion, that punched your ticket to the Champion of Champions last week up in Bolton, and you played Mark Selby in the first round. It was a really great experience for you because your 9-year-old son was there.
Yeah, well, he was with me at the seniors as well. All the kind of times that I'd qualified for the Crucible, that was before he was born. So to have him there with me at the seniors was really, really special. And he came with me again. I think he was expecting me to win the tournament again, but it didn't quite go according to plan, that one. But it was just really nice to be in the tournament, against in an elite field like that. Obviously, with myself dropping off the tour, the amount of practice that I've put in over the last few months is not what it would be, and I found it really, if I'm being perfectly honest. I've played a little bit of amateur stuff, and without being disrespectful, I can probably get away with it a little bit more in that, but certainly going out there on the main table against a player like Mark is totally different kettle of fish, and I found it really tough, I've got to be honest.
But there was one glorious moment. Mark Williams had promised a show for you there if he didn't qualify and you did. And, of course, he stood up to his bet and went through with it.
Yeah, I didn't really give him that much choice. He did try everything possible to get out of it, but, it was... he's got an habit of opening his mouth at times, and like he did when he said he would take his clothes off and do a naked press conference if he won the world, so... I think he hated absolutely every minute of driving me there, and he said he'll never do it again.
Well, his face when he came into that Bolton Stadium arena was like a wet weekend. He was very depressed, and of course he got a lot of stick from all of us. Yeah.
Well, I don't snooker-wise, I don't get the chance to take the mick out of him very often, so I did make sure that I got as much in there as I possibly could, because if it was the other way around, he'd be giving it to me. So, after the way I played, all the way home, I had stick in the car as well. So he's got his own back.
Two more questions before I will let you go. First off, you were saying last week that could well be your last ever match on the main tour. I know you're well down the Q School Order of Merit, so it's going to be difficult to get into events this season. Would you consider going back to Q School next year?
At this moment in time, the reason why I've said that this is going to be the end for me, obviously you could go to I'm definitely going to play in the senior events. I'm definitely going to play some amateur snooker. But as things stand at the moment, I can never see myself going back to playing Q School. The last time I played in it, a Q School is not really that enjoyable anyway. Don't think anybody really enjoys playing in it, but the last year I played in it, I really didn't enjoy it, and I said 2 years ago I wouldn't play in it again, and I ended up playing in it last time. But unless my kind of circumstances changed, I've agreed a job to go coaching in China. And I'm obviously doing a lot of, this is why I'm here now this week. Was coaching Liam Davis in the first round, and I'm with Andy Lee, who's playing now. So unless my circumstances drastically change, then yeah, I won't be. You'll still see me at all the tournaments and different things with Mark Williams and quite a few other players. But as regards to playing on the main tour, unless my circumstances change. Never say never, of course, but unless my circumstances change, that's it for me.
Well, I must say, Lee, on behalf of snooker, I can only thank you for what's been a wonderful career in terms of how you've conducted yourself. There's never been any controversy. You've always turned up, been a good egg, and so thanks for that. If everyone was like you, well, I think the journos would have nothing to write about in terms of argy-bargy.
That would be no good, would it? They wouldn't want everybody like me then. That would be no good.
Thanks again, Lee, for popping in, and we hope that Andy Lee does well for you later in the week.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Pleasure.
Lee Walker there from Newbridge in Wales, reigning World Seniors champion. Of course, Jimmy White, at the age of 60, he's been able to play in the seniors for maybe a decade and a half now. And yet he's still going strong on the main tour. So no commentary on the first segment of this frame, but really, with just one red potted, there was nothing much to say about it anyway. It was more interesting to see what Lee Walker was up to. So quickly replacing Walker in the left-hand chair. David Hendon is back in the saddle.
I think it's good to hear, isn't it, Phil, from, I know Lee's not playing here, but the personalities who are around will try and get a referee on maybe tomorrow. I know Rob Walker's going to be here to sell Judgment Day as if it needed selling. But if anyone can do it, Rob will be here tomorrow to tell us all about the plans for Judgment Day. That's Wednesday and Thursday. And we hope to catch up with a few other people as well as we bring you this coverage.
Rob Walker, the most positive, energetic man I think I've ever met. There's no off switches, the Dave.
No, and it's all genuine as well. He's the most enthusiastic person, as you say, you could possibly meet, and he'll be hosting Judgment Day with Ken Doherty Wednesday and Thursday. Now this frame is wide open, isn't it? The red's all spread far and wide. Might be a sort of half shot to nothing here. I guess the main part was to try and get the white back to bulk, but this red may be onto the middle. Well, he's not on the pink, clearly, so to keep the break going, it's going to be the yellow, I guess, and it's a bit do or die-ish, I think. But this match, it's almost like the decision has been taken. It's going to be just really open. They're going to go for their shots, which is great for everyone watching, I'm sure. And in goes the yellow. It's a good pot, that, really, because there's pressure on it. Now then, what's the result? Well, is he okay here? Doesn't look like he's on the red he's closest to. The one on the right-hand side might be cuttable, but not easy.
While we're in this scrappy phase, I did promise that in the third frame I would give you the question for tonight's competition. Well, here it is. Who has made the highest break in the history of the UK Championship? Who has made the highest break in the history of this tournament, the UK Championship over the years since its inception in 1977. Now remember, the prize, 2 tickets to the evening session next Tuesday in York, Tuesday the 15th. To enter, well, there's 2 ways. Email Cazoo competition at wst.tv or through Twitter.
Yeah, it's at We Are WST, so at We Are WST, or if you want to email Cazoo competition at wst.tv. Ian Budge, I think, watches a lot of snooker, Phil, because he says we're all about the best players with the rest. Who are the best players with the spider stroke bridge rest? Dominic Dale, perhaps? Well, of course, that's a reference to Dominic, who everyone knows it as the spider, but Dominic is old school, very much so, in fact, and he always refers to that piece of equipment as the bridge rest.
It's the spider. Come on.
Well, spider or not, he's 1 each, Dom, with Lee Hang at the moment.
Yeah, I'm trying to think really about who's the best with the spider. I think Ronnie O'Sullivan's exceptional, but that's a very easy thing to say. It's a cop-out because he's exceptional in every department. And I would also say Kyron Wilson as well.
Chance at a long red for Jimmy White here. Oh dear. Well, he looked good first frame, and he had a chance second frame, but since then he's looked a bit shaky. Maguire with this red to middle, and he of course will pick up on the edginess from his opponent. I mean, he's not looked great himself, to be fair, but he won the second frame. In the morning we're going to be watching Zhou Yulong against Michael White, so that'll be our morning match. And Stephen King has asked, could this be the year Michael White wins another tournament? Well, it's great to have him back on tour, isn't it? And, well, win a tournament, that's tough. Obviously, he's won a couple in the past, but he definitely seems to have turned a corner. And that'll be a really good game in the morning, I think. Zhou Yulong, runner-up at the Northern Ireland Open.
Yeah, with White, what's held him back, it's certainly not ability. He's got that in abundance. I think it's just purely and simply he went through a phase where he was far too nervous for his own good. All players tell you need to be nervous to a certain extent. But I think there's a limit. And I think he exceeded that limit.
Thanks for your messages. What we're going to do is, because I want to concentrate on the action as well, we will deal with the tweets in the interval. So we're going to have, of course, after this frame, there'll be another frame, and then we'll have a little 10-minute break, and then we'll be back before the play restarts to go through the queries.
That's the old chestnut, isn't it, Dave? Who do you think will win? Well, if I knew,
28.
I'd be investing. But the game these days is so tough to predict, even if you think you know something about it. So many great players, so many permutations
29.
as to who would claim the silverware. And that's most certainly the case in the UK Championship, even with the extended frames, best of 11s, and the top 16 seeded through to the last 32. I think it's a wide open championship, don't you?
It is, but what's interesting about the UK Championship is there haven't been that many surprise winners, have there? There's been more surprise world champions, actually. I mean, Maguire, when he won it, he'd already won a ranking event that year. It wasn't really a surprise. Zhao Xingtong last year, I suppose, you know, he'd come through, never won anything before, was a shock, really. Doug Mountjoy, when he won it for the second time, was thought to be on the slide in '88. So that was a bit of an upset. But other than that, really, it's all the sort of players you expect.
Yes, and even Mountjoy, who'd won the title originally in '78, even he completed 2 legs of the Triple Crown. He won the Masters as well and almost won the World Championship. Lost in the final in '81 to Steve Davis.
I think he expected to open things up a bit more there.
45.
Needs to come past this brown.
46.
Well, he's okay, actually flicking it. He's on the yellow. Doing the maths, the yellow puts him 46 in front. A couple more reds with colours should do it.
And as you watch this, don't forget you can see all of the rest of the UK Championship, including the final on Discovery Plus. Subscribers can also watch top sporting events, including tennis Grand Slams like the Australian Open, Roland Garros, the French Open, the cycling Grand Tours, plus a host of other sports, all live and on demand.
Meanwhile, that little cannon has worked out nicely. Well, the blue he missed in frame 2 on another day could have been very costly, but it didn't cost him. He needs another red after this pink. Great competitor, Steve Maguire. Wears his heart on his sleeve, but he makes it a match for anyone.
55.
And he absolutely could do some damage if he qualifies for York with all the good memories he's got there. He absolutely could go a long way in this event. We talked earlier about, like, someone asked us which qualifier could win the event. We talked about Ding and there were a few others, but Maguire is in that category of someone who could, as I say, go deep.
.60 in front, 51 on the table, 3 snookers needed by white. If this red is dribbled in, there's no way back. It's going to be a 2-1 lead for Maguire after losing the opening frame. Well, he didn't dribble it in, he punched it in. Eyes maybe on a century. Dave was telling me this afternoon he's 13th on the all-time list, Maguire. He's made 486 centuries in professional competition. Just a measure of the man.
Yes, he's just a no-nonsense sort of character, isn't he, Maguire? You know, he's a bit of an old-school pro, really. No interest in social media or any of the sort of modern trends. He just he is who he is, and what he is a fine player. Make no mistake. Well, the break's going to end there, but the main thing is he has just started to take control of this match.
76.
A valiant attempt to keep the run going, but with a break of 76, Stephen Maguire hits the front for the first time at 2-1 over the legend that is Jimmy White. I was thinking, you know, Dave, this afternoon, when Jimmy White turned professional just after winning the World Amateur Championship in Tasmania in Australia in 1980, there was no such thing as social media. In the UK, we had 3 channels on the TV to choose from. Now, of course, plenty of social media, and you can follow all of the action from the Cazoo UK Championship on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube and TikTok through WST, match clips, interviews, behind-the-scenes content and much more. And if you want to go the extra yard and sign up for their newsletter, that's worthwhile also. It gives you the latest news from the tour, plus special offers and priority ticket windows.
Yes, times have certainly moved on. There was no Triple Crown then either, but that's become established, of course. This is part of the Triple Crown series with the Masters and World Championship. Jimmy White, of course, has won 2 of those. We know the one he hasn't won. And coming here to Sheffield, I mean, Jimmy's not this sort of character. Genuinely, he isn't. But anyone else, I think, sort of driving past the Crucible, you'd have all those memories and regrets. But he's just not like that. He always is thinking about what's going to happen next, not what's already happened. But what needs to happen next in this match is he needs to cut out a few unforced errors. I'm not surprised he's left the arena actually between frames, just to collect his thoughts, because he started off well. He was looking good in frame 2, but a few errors have crept in since, and that's why he's 2-1 down.
Yeah, important to get back on an even keel here for White, because easy for Maguire to get some confidence, and if he does so, this match could quickly become a procession. Let me quickly give you some latest scores. Dwayne Jones 2-0 up on Anthony McGill. McGill is the highest ranked player required to play in qualifying. He's just missed out on the top 16, so has to be here. Pang Junsu, he's taking on Jamie Clark from Wales. 1-0 to Pang at the moment in that one. Alfie Burden, he's 3-0 up on Tom Ford. It's 2-0 officially, but he's so far ahead in the third frame, it will be 3-0. Andy Lee, who is coached by our guest of a few moments ago, Lee Walker, he's 1-0 down to Nopon Sankam, but Sankam needs a snooker in the second frame. Lee Hang 2-1 up against Dominic Dale. The winner there will play the winner here of the match on table 1 we're watching. Tian Peng Fei 3-0 up on Chris Wakelin. And Jimmy Robertson is taking on Zhu Si, and Robertson leads 2-0.
And tomorrow, as I say, in the morning, Zhou Yilong, Michael White. In the afternoon, we've got a real exciting match to look forward to. Ding Junhui against Tepchara Nu. And it looks like in the evening we'll be bringing you Ricky Walden's match against either Craig Steadman or Ian Burns. That's assuming that match is over by then. It's come off at 5-4 to Burns. Rob Spencer, the tournament director, came in earlier and he's doing a great job. He's kind of mainly on his own in there, actually, Rob. These are long days, aren't they? He's got a bit of assistance here and there, but essentially running the whole show himself. So you must remember the officials in these tournaments as well.
Yeah, Dave and I came here straight from the Champion of Champions, and it's a very different world. One table at Bolton, just a handful of players each day to think about. Here, 8 tables, 3 sessions. 9:30 local time it starts. And when it finishes, anyone's guess. It was well past midnight last night. Can't imagine this one will be a post-midnight finish, though, especially if Maguire starts knocking a few in. It could be over quickly.
Well, he's just starting to exert control now, isn't he? It's a good pot. He looks calm in himself, which I think with him is always important. Yeah, Rob's told me he's actually been here since last Tuesday, because of course that to set the venue up. It's not all magically done by itself. So he's here Tuesday. It started Friday, and of course he's here until Thursday. So it's about 10 days work in terms of being on site to get these qualifiers to run.
Yeah, he's still relatively inexperienced as a tournament director, but he did some work last year for Matchroom Multisport as a tournament director and organiser on pool tournaments where there were 256 entries with 24 tables. So I think that was a good starting point, good apprenticeship.
Well, just to reiterate, we're going to go through the tweets during the interval, so there'll be a little archive, 10 minutes, and then we'll have a good 5 minutes to go through what's been coming in. We're not ignoring them, but we do want to obviously just focus on this part of the match, because it seems like a significant part, with Maguire threatening to really take control and give Jimmy White a lot to think about at the interval.
Just momentarily undecided, so step back off the shot and does so again. Clearly he's in two minds, and that's not a good place to be when you're down on a snooker shot. You need to have total commitment for the shot you choose. Now that was really well played. He actually pinched a little bit of the pocket there by hitting it quite thick into that far jaw. He held the cue ball with ease.
22.
What I will say, and it's something I said last week as well, at the Champion of Champions, this table looks to be playing really nicely. Conditions are so important. The players relish when the table is conducive to quality snooker, and this one clearly is.
Yeah, and that's another group of people we should salute, the table fitters. You know, there's 8 match tables, there's practice tables as well they've had to install to, as you say, get these lovely playing conditions. Players love to complain when they're not good enough. Maybe a few of them could speak up when they are good, because it's not an easy job getting the tables in all sorts of venues with the different challenges to run as true as this. Steve Maguire certainly enjoying this one right now. He's got the balls where he wants them to take this 2-frame interval lead. He missed that blue in frame 2. He'd missed one in frame 1, and it was costly, but frame 2, he missed one, and that was Jimmy White's chance, really, to take early control, but he didn't do so, and Maguire's been the stronger player ever since.
seemed to me frustrated, irritated, a little under the cosh early on. But now the customary smoothness that he displays is back in evidence. And I think it's a really worrying sign for Jimmy White. Right now, it looks as though
7.
Maguire, even though he's only halfway to victory, looks as though he's going to justify his pre-match favouritism.
Well, this blue, his frame ball, effectively, well, he's already needs a snooker, but just to make sure. What I've noticed with Jimmy White is that if he suffers an early blow in a match, he finds it hard now to get over it, and I think we've seen that already here. Doesn't look quite the same as the match has gone on as he did early on. He needs 2 snookers as it stands.
73.
Otherwise, he's 3-1 down at the interval. He's got a lot of fans around the world hoping for the best, as they have been over the decades through good times and bad, but they're going to need a turnaround in the second half of the night.
Oh, and that's all Jimmy needs. That puts the seal on the frame, very luckily.
Yeah, that is just rubbing it in, isn't it? It's sort of, it's like you've fallen over and someone's come and kicked you. So Maguire with a chance for yet another century. Remember, he's made 92 in the history of the UK Championship. He's 3rd on that list behind only O'Sullivan and Hendry. What company to be in?
And he's so good, Dave, and he comes into the event so early. If he were to go deep in this year's championship, quite possibly he could make 8 and get to the 100 mark.
Yeah, there's something about the UK Championship that clearly appeals to Stephen Maguire. Seeing it again here. And I repeat what I said earlier. If he qualifies for York, then he is one of the leading players that the top 16 do not want to draw. Same as if he qualifies for the Crucible, which of course he did this year. Beat Sean Murphy, didn't he, in round 1. Then he beat Zhao Xingtong, the UK champ, in round 2. Ronnie O'Sullivan beat him 13-5 in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, the match against Murphy wasn't of a high standard, but the match against Zhao was, I thought, a big improvement.
Black for the century. Can't beat the high break, which is 144, but he might have a go here at getting on this red. Let's see how he gets on. Not a bad effort, is it? Terrific shot. Brilliant shot. He's made the century. Let's see if he can make the total clearance.
The answer is no. But with a 76 break in the 3rd frame and around 100 in the 4th, Stephen Maguire marches into the mid-session interval with a 3-1 lead. So play will stop for 15 minutes, but the entertainment will not. Next up, we're going to relive a golden memory from the UK Championship. It is a match between 2 of Jimmy White's chief tormentors. One from the 80s, one from the 90s. It's that changing of the guard final in 1990 between Stephen Hendry and Steve Davis.
Well, that applause says everything. last-minute kiss there has given Stephen a wonderful chance. Well, I think this sudden opportunity has
16.
pumped the adrenaline into Stephen. He's suddenly come alive, I feel. He's had a long spell.
17. Twenty-two. 23.
We'll just have to be a little careful on this one. Although the reds are split, they're not in ideal position. Thirty-seven. 44. 45.
'Well, Stephen has every chance here if he can just hold himself together.
Well, not quite far enough. Just the one red loose to the left of the pink. Well, a nice round of applause, but this one is tricky, and as so often happens, the most vital stage of the break.
Well, that will be rather a stabbing wound for Steve Davis. Had to sit and suffer. And is that the final blow? And Steve remaining calm and concentrating. And I fear for Steve Davis that is the end.
74.
Well, one can only have the greatest admiration for this young man, because a couple of frames ago his concentration seemed to have gone, and to go behind and then reply with snooker like this, Jack, is really quite remarkable.
82.
Yes, it's unlike some games, you can't have a draw at this game. They both have played so brilliantly. It's a game I shall never forget. I've seen many, many of the finest games with centuries and 147s, but for sheer quality, I think this is the supreme game. And would you believe
91.
he has a 1-4-1 break on, and what a finish that would be. Oh, well, he's got a cover.
Yes, but if John Parrott's in Liverpool watching that, he'll be pleased, I'm sure, Jack.
So Steve Davis congratulates Stephen Hendry, the world champion last year's UK, and he retains the title. And this young man has really created history today. A wonderful, wonderful match.
Appreciation, please, for both players, for Steve Davis and for Stephen Hendry. Magnificent final. Consisting of the chairman of Stormseal, Mr. Mark Sweeney, and the chairman of Matchroom, Mr. Barry Hearn. And first, ladies and gentlemen, to the runner-up, a cheque for £60,000. Our congratulations for a magnificent performance goes to Steve Davis. To the winner, a cheque for £110,000, the trophy and the title of the 1990 Stormseal United Kingdom champion, Stephen Hendry, ladies and gentlemen.
Great sporting events make great stories. On Discovery Plus, watch Lycra Warriors battle.
It has been a blockbuster.
Hot shots fire.
The legend.
Sharpshooters strike.
Ronnie O'Sullivan is in seventh heaven.
And thrill seekers zoom. There's live sport for everyone on Discovery Plus.
Welcome back, everyone. If you saw the clip there of Stephen Hendry defeating Steve Davis 16-15, it brought back so many memories. What a way to win such an important match. It wasn't just about success, Dave, that was about succession. 1990 was the year it all changed. Steve Davis, the king of the 80s, was dethroned, and for the next decade, the man was Stephen Hendry.
Well, we're going to go through some tweets, and I think this potentially, Phil, will lead into what we've just seen, because Mark asks, what's the best high-pressure pot you've seen? He says Peter Ebdon's Pink springs to mind, and that was in the semis of the World Championship, of course, when he was 16-14 down. But in that final, we didn't quite see it there, but to get to 15 all, Stephen Hendry potted a particular blue, didn't he?
He did. It was absolutely tremendous down the rail. I think that was the second best pressure pot I've ever seen. Hendry was responsible for the best. It was a slowly rolled brown, at the start of his comeback against Jimmy White in the 1992 World Final. If you recall, he was 14-8 down in that. The cue ball was in the jaws of the middle pocket. He had to slowly roll the brown for position, and he never faltered. It went in, and of course, he ended up winning 10 frames in succession to turn that 14-8 deficit into an 18-14 victory. And although White lost 18-17 to Hendry in a subsequent World Final, I think many people regard that as perhaps his biggest disappointment at the Crucible.
Mal Waddle writes, after the Mark King incident earlier, which appeared not to be a push shot, what would be your thoughts on using some sort of video replay to check incidents like this? Generally, referees are good, but there have been a few over the years, such as fouls not called, incorrect free balls. Well, this was in another match. Now, it's difficult when you're not down there. Obviously, the players and the referee are down at the table watching on a replay. It's not always absolutely clear. I think a lot of people felt it was an incorrect call. In fact, the two players did. In terms of video evidence, I would have no problem with it if it was used sparingly. You don't want every decision to go back to it, because we've seen in other sports that can slow things down. But there are certain incidents, and it's usually, did the player hit a ball or not? Was a foul or not? It would make sense if the technology is there, which of course it is in TV events, to go back and use it. One thing I would say on that table, there was just one referee, there was no independent marker, so it wouldn't have been practical on that table to do it because they didn't have the facility. But certainly in TV events, when you do, and everyone else watching can see at home, it makes sense for the official's own, I think, frame of mind to refer to it.
Yeah, I think video replay in practice is a little different from theory. I think definitely it would work for a lot of things, but sometimes, push shots, you can't really tell, even with a video replay, whether it is a push or not. I think in that instance it definitely wasn't. And I think when both players agree, and Oliver Brown was very sporting to say he didn't think it was, and clearly Mark King was adamant it wasn't, and he was the one playing the shot he knows from the feel. I think when both players agree, surely then a referee might cotton on and change his mind.
Let's try some brief answers now, because we've got a lot to get through before we restart. Michael writes, growing up and as you got older, who was your inspiration in snooker commentary or other broadcasting? This is going to have to be the last question because the play's restarting quickly. Phil?
Well, certainly in snooker it was Clive Everton, undoubtedly. In broadcasting in general, I think it was a gentleman that a lot of people in Britain wouldn't have heard of, but Vin Scully, who was the voice of the Los Angeles Dodgers baseball for 67 seasons. He was, right until the end of his career, simply brilliant.
Okay, well, also brilliant is Stephen Hallworth, who's going to be coming in shortly to continue. So any more tweets, Stephen is going to talk you through, and let's see if there's a recovery for Jimmy White here or if it's going to be Steve Maguire's evening.
Thanks to David Hendon, he's put in a shift today. Stephen and myself will take it through to the end. It could be 3 frames. Let's hope that Jimmy White can find some of the old-time inspiration and mount a recovery. So Stephen Hallworth is in situ. And I think it's fair to say, Stephen, that White needs to bring about a wholesale improvement on what we saw pre-interval. He was okay in the first frame, made a 46 break brightly, but thereafter he didn't offer a great deal.
Yeah, good evening, Phil. Good evening, guys. You're right. Jimmy has just started to look a little bit frustrated. He's missed a couple, and Maguire seems to have just grown with a bit of momentum. He's going to have to dig deep, Jimmy, and try and find some of the form he's shown in his previous 2 matches. You know, yet to drop a frame before this game. But there's one thing you can guarantee with the Whirlwind. He'll dig deep and give it everything he's got.
You hear the naysayers say, well, Jimmy White's 60 years of age now. Surely it's just making up the numbers. But they forget, or they don't know, that in 1978 at the Crucible, just up the road here, Fred Davis reached the semi-finals of the World Championship at the grand old age of 64. Now, I know the game was very different then to what it is now, but nevertheless, if you've got class, that's permanent. In fact, Fred Davis might well have reached the final that year. He missed a very bad pink when he had the chance to really put some pressure on Perry Mans from South Africa, who eventually won that semi-final before succumbing to Ray Reardon for the title.
1.
That's a nice red from Jimmy. Played it confidently, dropped it in, finished nicely on the black. So just a couple of loose reds available.
8.
Just has a quick glance at the pack of reds. Not an ideal pack to go into, with the pink being a couple of inches away
9.
from the top of the pack.
One improvement after the interval is guaranteed. The referee's microphone, Micah Kessler, the referee's microphone is working.
Fourteen. 15.
'I do have the name of the competition winner this evening. I will give you that at an opportune moment. Oh, that is beautiful. Just arced the cue ball off the top cushion into the bunch. Made an ideal
22.
contact.
23.
And now this is promising.
Yeah, it was a slightly awkward pack to go into, but got enough action on the cue ball to create something.
Yep.
Flicked a few reds out. Just having
30.
the cue ball clean. Feels he had a slightly heavy contact there. Been a few this evening. I wonder, just as the day's gone on, it's just become a bit warmer in the venue, and a couple of heavy contacts coming into play, but shouldn't be too much of an issue for Jimmy. Up for blue again here.
$31.
Just a little bit off that. He was worried about not being able to hold the cue ball on the blue. He held it too well. So incorrect side of the blue, having to come round the houses with lots of running side. And he's completed the task terrifically.
36.
Yeah, that's a great shot. That lovely long swing Jimmy possesses. Really gearing up, getting through the cue ball. Generating plenty of speed through the acceleration.
37.
Just finished a tad straight on the black to just stun up past the red. Make it potable into the right corner, so had a little look, see if it goes to left middle. Don't think it does. Well, it must do, so Another good pot to middle here required. Back for the black, possibly.
44. 45. Jimmy wide, 45.
Well, in terms of the contact and getting the cue ball back deep into baulk, that was a successful safety from White. The only problem, this rogue red might well be knocked in. Indeed. Could do with a good kiss here. No kiss at all. But he does have the brown to middle and a reasonable angle off the brown. And the way the reds are, and the way the colours are, well, I'm a little surprised that Maguire isn't taking it on. Because he's normally so aggressive in his mindset. That said, with this table being so open, if White does make a misjudgment here with his attempted escape, it's quite possible Maguire could run the table and go 4-1 ahead. I think that particular shot is just how you feel at the time, and you can't second guess Maguire for laying the snooker. That's too narrow, and so it will be called a miss.
Steve Maguire 4.
Nothing left at all, so Maguire takes no time to request the cue ball being replaced.
Yeah, just making absolute sure that he tries to rest on the two reds to the right of the screen as we look. Doesn't want to go between the gap and leave anything for Maguire to go at, so he's finding the line. He's done so now. It's a little bit heavy-handed though. The tap on the table indicates He's not left anything. Well, it must be tight. Maybe there is a gap.
Now, there were two aspects to that shot from Maguire. One, of course, the main priority was to achieve safety, and a telling safety at that. But he was also thinking about avoidance of putting a red or two under a cushion. So all in all, a decent result. This red, though, is on. So is the safety, swinging it round off a couple of cushions. Oh, but that was the worst of both worlds.
Yeah, he stuck him right in now. Maguire's got a great chance. Just trailing this frame, but not really anything safe on cushions. Just the three reds around the pink to negotiate, so decent little opportunity for him. Don't forget, guys, if you've got any questions or comments, feel free to tweet us. We'll try and answer as many as possible. Give any insights you might feel that you want to hear. At WeAreWST, we've got a thread running over there if you just want to drop your comments, or you can tweet me directly at Stephen Hallworth. We'll see if we can get as many answers to you as possible during the conclusion of play this evening.
Here for Maguire, positional no man's land.
Blue ball.
So as Maguire plays a safety shot on the blue, we've had a comment from John Walsh on Twitter. Just tagged me in a question. How exactly are safety stats decided? Pot success is obvious enough, but what qualifies as a successful safety shot, and safety success percentages are shown?
Well, John, I'll be totally honest, I haven't got a clue. I've often wondered that. We have the stats available to us when we do the big tournaments, and you see that safety success stat, the percentage, and you wonder what qualifies. So I think that's a perfectly reasonable question. I'm just sorry, I've not got a definitive answer.
Yeah, I think the obvious thing to look at is, you know, players are trying to get a good white, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good safety. If the object ball is left, say you nail your opponent to the baulk cushion, but you leave a long red or a chance at a long red, then for me that's not a good safety. So I think the total outcome of the whole shot,
Jimmy wide,
really getting your opponent in trouble, would indicate a much better safety shot for me.
Just like to say a big thank you to all of you watching on YouTube and Facebook. Already today we've had over 250,000 views. So thanks for tuning in. Oh, and Stephen Maguire is thanking his lucky stars there. He played the double and it was a treble. That was well struck in terms of the deep screw effect he got on the green ball, off the green ball. I think had he caught it a little fuller, he would have been in better position on the open red.
Stephen Maguire 4.
So another mistake from Maguire and presenting a chance for Jimmy. Like I said, these 3 reds under the pink are going to be the decisive factor in this frame, you feel. It's going to have to get them open.
1.
Just looks a little too straight on both of his
Green ball.
options, blue and green.
Plenty of screw on this, into the cushion. He's been a bit unlucky there, he couldn't have hit that much better. Had to force
4.
the angle. Struck it quite well. Ball's just not quite rolled for him. As we look at that lovely double-breasted waistcoat Jimmy's wearing, which leads me on to a question from Christine on Twitter. Jimmy looking sharp in his waistcoat. What's the most stylish outfit you have ever seen snooker played in?
I think actually I would plump for an opponent of Jimmy White in an iconic Masters semi-final in 1984, Kirk Stevens.
Absolutely, that was the answer I was going to say. Definitely.
The old white suit. Stevens, the Canadian heartthrob, who could also play the game very well.
Jimmy White 4.
As Maguire plays a foul shot, gives 4 away.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to see a little bit more flair from players. Obviously, sometimes there are restrictions to what you can wear, but there's definitely some personalities on the tour, and I think a few would possibly like to express that. Bring back the full white suit, I say.
Well, that match at the Masters in '84 was unforgettable. Stevens made a 147. White produced some wonderful snooker as well. 164 and then lifted the trophy the following day. Now, I know you didn't ask what was the worst get-up, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It was, in my opinion, worn by a really good friend of mine, Mark Johnston Allen. He was talked into wearing this outfit where one leg was white, the other leg was black, and on top it was the opposite way around. And he said, as I came down the stairs at the Crucible, I suddenly realised that if I'm wearing something like this, I better play well. And that put him under a lot of pressure, and he lost. Well, White's under no pressure in this frame now. He's over the line, although an extra colour would come in handy.
Blue ball. Six. Seven.
Well, the proverbial ghost
12.
is not being given up. The whirlwind starting to blow again.
13. $19. Jimmy White, 19 in the frame.
It's not all white on the night yet. Maguire still leads, but only 3-2. And talking about night, it's a good evening for Jane Knight, our competition winner. I asked at the start of this session, I think it was in frame 3 actually, what is the highest break ever recorded in the UK Championship? And Jane answered correctly, 148 from Jamie Burnett, who is a fellow Scot of Steve Maguire's. So well done to Jane Knight. You will be receiving 2 tickets to the evening session at the Barbican in York next Tuesday, the 15th. I was going to say, let's hope you see some good snooker, but really, that's pretty much guaranteed. While White is out of the arena, let me keep you up to date with the latest scores in this 8-table setup. Dwayne Jones 2-1 up on Anthony McGill. The 4th frame, very tight. Also, pretty slow going on table 7. Pang Junzhu is 2-1 up on Jamie Clark. Alfie Burden, good friends with Jimmy White. He's 3-2 up on Tom Ford, but it was 3-0. Andy Lee from Hong Kong is taking on Thailand's Nopon Sankam. Lee is leading 2-1. Lee Hang and Dominic Dale. That's 3-2 to Lee Hang.
Frame 6. Jimmy White to break.
Tian Peng Fei, he's 4-0 up on Chris Wakelin, although it really does look as though Wakelin is going to break his duck for the evening. And Jimmy Robertson finds himself 2-2 against Zhu Si. That after Robertson won the first 2 frames. Now that's more like it from Maguire.
Rumble.
So another question coming on the socials. Simon Towers asks, how different are the TV tables to the ones here this week? It is hard to adapt if you're not a regular at the final stages. Well, first thing to say is the tables themselves are exactly the same as the TV tables, if you like, at big events. I think the only real difference is obviously the sort of venues itself and the arenas, and also the lighting on the table. The TV table has a lot more lighting on it, which throws off a different glare, and for some reason just seems to make the tables play that little bit different for me, having obviously not a lot of experience playing under the big lights. It obviously it projects a lot more heat, so the tables do play slightly different, and they do take a little bit of adapting to. But the tables themselves, all-star tables, all cut the same. So theoretically they should all play the same.
Yeah, I think Simon is correct though, because of the influences that you described, Stephen. The main match table is a different animal from the rest, and that's why if you have a lot of exposure out there, it is definitely an advantage when you're playing someone who is relatively new to that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think more times than not, when you're actually on the TV table, you're playing a top player, and say for someone like myself, starting out or a
Thank
few
you.
years back,
12.
could have been a daunting prospect, and you're fighting that psychological battle as well. So obviously as I've got older and experienced that more and more, you become to get used to it, and you play a lot better. But for the guys and ladies starting out on the tour and just experience that for the first time, it can be a difficult challenge, as well as the obvious prospect of beating the player in front of them as well.
This is going off at a slight
13.
tangent, but I think over the years, the constant conundrum and difficulty has been for players to try and replicate match conditions in their practice environment. You must have found that, Stephen.
Twenty.
Always looked as though he caught that just a little too thick.
Stephen
I thought
Maguire,
the sound
20.
of the shot actually suggested to me, and I'm not making excuses for Maguire, that might have been a marginal kick, you know.
It just seems to be a little bit heavier out there this evening, and it's just gonna, I mean, shot selection might have to change somewhat. Balls just aren't moving as much as they would do. As we see, Maguire didn't get the best of contacts on that pack, but they didn't move hardly at all, so bit of a battle out there. Another question from Ed on Twitter: why does Jimmy always queue up so low on the cue ball, as if he's going to apply screw back to every shot, and then often raises the cue as he's going through to strike the ball?
I don't know why he does it. Obviously, that's his personal preference. I know that's a very simple answer to a complex question. What I will say, he's always been the same. And he went through a period when he was right at the top of the game where he was very prone to feathering the cue ball. I remember in the old Rothmans Grand Prix at the Hexagon Theatre in Reading, he did that in a deciding frame, and it was really, really costly. I think his opponent that night was Ian Graham, if I recall. But he did it regularly, feathering the cue ball.
Yeah, it's definitely an unorthodox way of addressing the cue ball, but like you say, he's mastered it, and he's done it for as long as he's been playing. It's similar to, an example would be Judd, how you can watch Judd down the line of the shot and he doesn't look anywhere near online, but as he comes through and delivers the cue and catches the cue ball at exactly the right point, he hits the ball as well as anyone, and obviously he's one of the best players we've got. It's about mastering what you've got and developing your own ways of playing the game. There's obviously a textbook way of playing, but I tend to
6.
like to disregard the textbook, because I think you'll struggle to find two players that play this game exactly the same. And that's a nice shot from Maguire.
7.
Yes, White might not get much opportunity to address many shots in this frame after that. Maguire was especially good in moving from 1-1 to 3-1 just before the interval. He made breaks of 76, and then in frame 4, exactly a century.
15. Twenty. 12. 21.
We've said this about all of the seeds who've played today. Tepchara new this morning, Oliver Lyons this afternoon, and now Stephen Maguire. There's an extra layer of pressure for them in this match, because if they don't win it, they receive 0 ranking
26.
points. If they do win, they're guaranteed at least 5,000. It's a big leap.
It is, yeah, and you feel these first matches for the seeds are important just to get them settled in. I mentioned earlier, it's like
27.
the World Championships now, such a massive game for those seeds. Yes, they get the prize money, but the ranking points often mean more than that. Just want to get off to a good start, get that first game under your belt, feel like you're involved in the tournament. Obviously this man at the table now is someone that very much likes this tournament, does well here.
Of course, I was underplaying that with Maguire because this is round 3. And so for him, he's playing for 0 ranking points or at least 7,500. So the leap is even bigger than I said originally. Oh, nicely done. 4-2 on the cards now.
34. $35.
Now that
42.
supports Stephen Hallworth's theory that it is a bit heavy out there. He didn't really get the spin on the cue ball he anticipated. And a
43.
pressure shot coming up. The cue ball much too close to the side cushion for comfort. 5 reds left. That means 67 on the table. This is frame ball. And it refuses to drop.
Steve Maguire, 43.
So perhaps a ray of light for white.
Yeah, he's never been one to shy away from showing his emotion, Maguire, and he's certainly doing that at the moment. Looks particularly frustrated with things, although he has got a lead in this match.
Oh, but that was a shocker, wasn't it? An absolute shocker.
Foul.
Yeah, it always looked like
Jimmy
it was
White,
going to be
7.
close, that. If he wasn't going to flick off the red and pop the black with the white, there was always a chance that was going to happen, and I think Maguire knew it. He sort of had a little giggle to himself before he got down, as if he anticipated that was going to happen.
It's a nightmare shot for him, Stephen, but a wonderful opportunity for white, because he opened up the pink as well. Everything about that shot was against Maguire. Everything was in favour of white, who could now complete a great escape here.
Yeah, it couldn't have gone much worse really for him. He's had a bit of a mare with that one, and that pink just wriggles in. So Jimmy's just got to find a little bit of composure now. This is a
7.
decent little chance. And And there's nothing really stopping Jimmy from going on to pinch this frame. And this could be a big turning point in this match.
8.
But taking the pink here means that he's got no room for manoeuvre on the last two reds. He has to knock them in with blacks. If he does that and then clears the colours, he will steal the frame by a single point.
14.
He is just looking a touch edgy, Jimmy. He's not quite delivering the cue as smoothly as he would like at the moment. And sometimes when the pressure builds, you can throw in a quick one. It's just steadying himself.
$15.
Yeah, that's a nice shot. He played across the face of the black there for the black in the same pocket to guarantee finishing high on it to drop down for this red. So good thinking. So one good shot now. Make sure
22.
the red bounce the cue ball up 6 inches.
23.
All about nerve now. He's cleared
30.
the colours in this situation on countless occasions in the past.
$32.
Yeah, and he's just asked himself another little question, losing control of the cue ball again. Shouldn't be an issue, but doesn't want to be chasing too many shots when he's under pressure. Played it well.
Thank you. 35. $39.
Again, Stephen, not pinpoint.
$44.
But now it should be plain sailing. Should be.
$50.
Yeah, he's taking these well considering. It does look like he's feeling it out there, but that's a good little dish from the wind.
57 and the frame. Jimmy White.
Absolutely right it is. 57 to win the frame by a single point on the black. But I tell you what, Stephen Maguire will be simmering there, livid. He potted frame ball at that same shot, at that same visit to the table. He knocked in the black inadvertently, and White did the rest. Maguire really, for all intents and purposes, should have been 4-2 ahead. As it is, it's 3-3, and anyone's guess who will come through. A little while ago we were talking about memories of the Masters with Kirk Stevens and Jimmy White and all that stuff. Well, you know, for the ultimate snooker experience, we have luxury Century Club packages available at the Masters. Ali Pali in January. It includes the finest food, drink, the best seats, and much more. It really is a fantastic Christmas present for anyone who loves snooker. And of course, the Century Club will also be a feature of the World Championship this season, next year, up at the Crucible, not too far from here. So again, what a wonderful present that would be to give someone for Christmas, someone who loves the green baize action.
So just another quick question from Michael at Mr. Kelly 147 on Twitter. I suppose this one can be for you, Phil. Throughout your commentary life, who has been the number one
Frame
player
7.
you've enjoyed watching
Stephen
the
McWhite
most
break.
and why?
I'd like to say 2. Obviously, I always enjoy when I'm commentating on Friends because then you're emotionally invested. So that's an extra little bit of pleasure. I think in terms of ability, in terms of achievement now and career accomplishment, you have to say Ronnie O'Sullivan. He's the best player that's ever been. But, you know, my also list would have to be topped by Stephen Hendry. Under pressure, he produced some extraordinary stuff over the years. When I played, I was very nervous, and so I really appreciate players who've got lots of bottle, and Hendry had it in abundance. Didn't just have bottle, of course, he had wonderful skills and break building abilities. But the way he produced in big moments, time and again, I thought was something else. So yeah, it would be Ronnie O'Sullivan, number one, but with Hendry receiving a very honourable mention.
Yeah, and I suppose when all is said and done, throughout all the magical moments that these players have produced over the years, you can say that he was part of the action, he was there. So it's something that no one will be able to take away from you, and memories, like you say, that will live on forever.
I'm not going to say the players who I've least enjoyed commentating on, that would create a stir. I will say one actually, but for not the reason you might expect. I always found it very difficult to commentate on Tony Drago. He was wonderfully entertaining, and I really liked Tony. And when he was at his best, he was sensational. The only problem was, for a commentator, he was a nightmare because he was so unpredictable, both in terms of the standard he would produce and also the shots he would take on.
Just hold his hand up there, Jimmy. A little flick off the red. He was in a bit of bother there, really. Maguire played a good aggressive safety shot, opened the balls far and wide, and put Jimmy under a bit of pressure, but got away with it somewhat. There is a red which will go underneath the pink, and he's got it.
1.
That's a nice opening red for Maguire, but again, just falling awkward and failing to pull up above the baulk line, so just the nestling behind
Steve
the brown.
Maguire, 1.
Now then, get your sat-nav out for this one. I'm not sure Jimmy's going to have to find a safe area on the table here, and the red's being so far and wide spread, it's going to be incredibly difficult.
A sat-nav wouldn't do because they provide alternative routes. There might not be a single route here with any certainty.
If you can get the pace right, there is the red on the black cushion. Doesn't want to flick off it and bounce, and he has done so. He was always going to do well to get that one safe. Had to be pinpoint accurate.
One.
He was watching that cue ball intently. As Stephen said, not much room for error there. And if he's on the black, it could lead to plenty.
Yeah, he's just having a firm look at where the black spot exactly is situated, because it will make a difference in terms of when it's respotted. So choosing to screw into the red, open the black spot up properly.
8.
Now just has to mind his work for a couple of shots. find perfect position. He'd love to get rid of the red just underneath the black, just to give himself a bit more room for manoeuvring the cue ball around this area of the table. Nicely done. So this is now a great
16.
scoring opportunity. Virtually all the reds in open play. All the colours available.
$17.
These are the sort of scenarios players practice day in, day out.
24.
Little stuns and screws around the black end of the table.
25.
Whole different kettle of fish doing it out there on the match table, but Maguire, vastly experienced, great champion. Won't be taking anything for granted, that's for sure.
$32. $33.
I think few could argue that he's been the better
39.
player this evening, Maguire. But he's just made a few too many unexpected errors, unforced
40.
errors. Also a little unlucky in the previous frame, one has to say that. And the sum and substance of what I've just said is that white is hanging in there.
$46. 47. $53. 54.
In frame 6, he was on the verge of winning it.
60.
Didn't quite cross the line, but I'm sure he will here.
Yeah, and
61.
that's what the top guys do, is brush that psychological blow off from the previous frame and got on with the job at hand here. Taken these well so far, just needs to finish off the job now.
$68.
With the
69.
disappearance of that red, white needs 3 snookers. But of course, Maguire remains at the table scoring.
$71.
nifty plant, opening up the possibility,
72.
Stephen, of his second century tonight.
Yeah, clever little shot there. Nicely played. And yeah, good chance for a century now.
Seven to 9.
Can't beat
80.
the high break of the tournament so far, a 144 from Cazoo Peng earlier this afternoon.
Yeah, there's a £15,000 highest break prize which runs throughout the qualifiers
87.
and throughout the week at York. So Cazoo Peng, I reckon, is arguably favourite to bank that. He's certainly an even money chance for me. It'll take some overhauling.
Thank you. 88.
Can tell you, the defending UK champion is here.
95.
Zhao Zintong. He's based in Sheffield, of course, during the season. He's not watching this match, but he is in the building, as they say.
96.
On a spying mission to see any possible threats.
Yeah. Eyeing up his possible opponents for next week as he goes on his title defence.
103.
As Maguire dots the I's
105.
and crosses the T's on this frame. Yeah, fabulous memories for Zing Tong
108.
last year, picking up a first Triple Crown.
Steve Maguire, 108. The frame.
So it's no clearance from Stephen Maguire. The brown is missed, but so what, really? He's second century of the evening. And Maguire, who has made the three highest breaks of the match, 76, 100 and 108, leads Jimmy White 4-3. He needs two more to progress. Now, if watching this today has whetted your appetite for the Cazoo UK Championship final stage at the Barbican in York next week, let me tell you about the ticket situation. Well, there's a sellout for many sessions, including the opening afternoon on Saturday. Also, the entire final weekend, Saturday and Sunday, that's sold out. But there is the odd session where tickets remain available, and you can book from just £20. And of course, if you want to come down to the qualifiers, which run here until Thursday, here at Ponds Forge, plenty of tickets available for that at just £10 for the entire day. That really is value. Now, what about these other scores? Dwayne Jones leads Anthony McGill 4-1. McGill, as the world number 17, is the highest ranked player required to qualify, and he's in a little bit of trouble there. Pan Jung-Zhu, former Rookie of the Year, he's 2-all with Jamie Clark. Alfie Burden 4-3 up on Tom Ford, but it was worse for Ford early on. He was 3-0 down. Nopon Sankam and Andy Lee 2-2 there. They're back from the interval. The winner of Maguire White will play either Dominic Dale or Lee Hang. Lee Hang is 4-2 ahead, although Dale is looking good on a sizable break in the 7th frame. Tian Peng Fei 4-2 up on Chris Wakelin. And Jimmy Robertson and Zhu Si, it's 3-2 to Zhu. And when tables become available, we've got 3 matches from the second qualifying round this afternoon still to be completed.
Frame 8. Jimmy White to break.
massive frame this. If Maguire can tuck it away, White's chances will have badly receded.
That was mightily close. Wasn't too far away from that at all, and plenty of work on the cue ball as well. We've had another message from the midwife on Twitter. And we've already briefly touched on it, but we'll just mention it again in case you wasn't tuned in earlier. People have been calling for the format of this UK Championship to be changed for years. Why do you think the World Snooker Tour have finally decided to go for it? Well, without getting into the politics of it too much and just basing it on the pure facts, I think looking at it from a player's perspective, for me it's better for the players at the lower end of the tour. Obviously they're going to be playing people around their own ranking, and it's almost like you serve your apprenticeship, work your way up the ladder through the rounds to then have the grand prize of playing the top 16 at the venue, which is obviously a fantastic incentive. Obviously there's pros and cons to it, you know, the prize money structure is different. Obviously players have to win matches to get ranking points, etc. But in terms of working your way up and going through the event, I think it's a good thing for the players. It's always a hard task when it's number one playing number 128. It's hard enough as it is this game without having to play the big guns every first round and that being decided whether or not you take any money home and any ranking points. So I think from a player's standpoint, it's definitely better for me.
Couldn't agree more, and it's a no-brainer commercially for the broadcasters, the BBC, for Eurosport and for Discovery Plus. It makes absolute sense. The top 16 players, the game's biggest stars, guaranteed to be in the final stages against 16 qualifiers. For them, it's wonderful. It maximises interest, viewing figures. It's a format that works really well for the World Championship, so why not the UK Championship?
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that it is good to have variety across the World Snooker Tour. There are different structures to different events, and we're always going to have those flat draws where you get the big first round shocks of top players being beaten by amateurs or lower down ranked players. For your big events, I think the seeding structure and the ladder system to it, if you like, where a player works their way through, I think that's a good thing for me.
I think it's almost unanimous, isn't it, down the rankings? It's good for the lower ranks.
10.
Good for the top seeds. Good for everyone. Good for the game in general. This was the format we used to have as well when the Shanghai Masters was a world ranking event. They loved it.
17.
I think you're right. Variety is the spice of life. Yeah, keep some flat draws for the home nations events,
18.
for the shootout, obviously, but also incorporate this structure, I think, a little more often.
Anyway, big frame for Jim here. Got to get back into this match and get something going. Ideally wants to keep Maguire away from getting to 5 frames and being on the cusp. Keep the pressure on him. And he's in again with a chance, although he's not ideal on this red. Still got a shot at it. Yeah, nicely played.
26.
So Slightly awkward bridging as well, and having to just grab the cue ball, bring it across the blue into the same pocket. Negotiated that one well. This red being potted removes the path.
32.
Oh, sorry, allows the path for the other two reds into the opposite corner. So slowly chipping away here. The lead ever increasing.
White's highest break so far this evening, 57. That was a clearance to steal the 6th frame by a single point on the black.
40.
There's a really good opportunity here to better that.
$47. 48. Yeah.
White has clearly seen something on the cue ball, so asking Micah Kessler, the referee, to clean it, which reduces the chances of a kick. It doesn't completely eliminate the chance though, Stephen.
No, and you've often seen it over the years where a player has the cue ball cleaned and then gets down, plays the next shot and has a massive kick. But I think we see far less of that nowadays with the new chalk and the conditions. I'm a firm believer as well, it's a lot down to how a player strikes the ball. If you hit a bad one, it's not going to go where you want it to, or you can get some funny reactions, so getting through the white well is always a positive.
$56.
Incorrect side of the blue. At least though he does have some form of angle to take the cue ball in and out of balk, but a crackerjack required. Loads of side spin.
61.
Perhaps a little too much.
Yeah, and again, just asking himself one too many questions.
Jimmy White, 61.
So this frame very much still live. 75 points available on the table with Jimmy White's 61 point lead, so Maguire still well in this frame.
You always get this in frames of this nature with a one-sided scoreline. The one thing that White wants to do right now is to keep the awkward red on the side cushion. That's a high priority for him. He wants to try and, if he can, make the table as messy as possible. Conversely, Maguire wants that red off the cushion, and he wants the table as open as possible.
Yeah, and Maguire's done a good job of cutting off the pack of reds to Jimmy here. Almost forcing Jimmy to go at something to try and get close to this red on the side cushion, and that's why he's choosing to drop on it dead weight. So no harm done really in that shot.
Yeah, if anything, he's made it marginally more awkward.
Looks like he's gearing up to go for this red, Stephen. No, just the safety.
Smattering of applause, well deserved. That was superbly cued.
Yeah, struck that one nicely, and always a good indicator when the ball slaps the back of the leather. Controlled the white nicely as well, so played it confidently. So still plenty of work to do though in this frame.
The double kiss on the pink deprived him of position on the red closest to the black, but a veiled position on another red.
Seven. Thirteen. 14.
One more red in mid-table in the open. Then the hard work will begin. For a right-hander, the red closest
21.
to the cue ball isn't too bad. But the red on the left-hand side cushion as we're looking, that could be really problematic.
$22.
Yeah, you feel it's definitely going to come down to that red. Stephen has got a pretty good angle on this pink now to just try and dislodge the red from the cushion. How's your luck?
$28.
Not for the first time tonight, Stephen. Not had the best positional luck there.
No, but it could have been a lot worse. He could have misjudged the cannon, double kissed it and finished on nothing. He has got a shot at this red. I find it hard to believe that he'll refuse some sort of pot on it. big shot to go for, but it could be a frame winner. He's got a few options here. Three pockets. He can go for this top corners or then cut to middle. I think the corner pocket's probably the best option for him. Just needs to fully commit. Oh, very close. Couldn't have got
Stephen
much
Maguire,
closer to that
28.
Again, he's done that on several occasions this evening. Really rattled them. What he's done here is given White a great chance to put him in pretty deep trouble. And White hasn't made the most of that.
No, you have to say that's a pretty poor shot from Jimmy. He would have expected to have done much better from that position. Was under no pressure to get the White right in behind the black spot. So a chance for Stephen to possibly return the favour. Try and get Jimmy in some trouble. Doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, I believe the brown is blocking one red and the yellow might be in the way of the other. If he can see a red, it's only a very thin sliver. Clearly he can't.
Foul. Miss. Steve Maguire 4.
Well, for Stephen Maguire there, the in-off would have been simply delightful. Now he's on the horns of a dilemma, Stephen.
Yeah, he's got to go for the red. He can't have this back. You just know as a player, you put that back, he's going to hit it, probably fluke it, or at least get it safe. Well, I can't believe he's refusing it. It wouldn't surprise me if Jimmy gets away with this now, or something daft happens like he flukes it, or puts Maguire back in trouble.
I am not criticising Stephen Maguire in any way. What I will say is that is uncharacteristic. He normally takes the bull by the horns, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And what Maguire had left before was arguably easier than this.
Yeah, it's not finished perfect for Maguire. He's got a chance at the red, but like you say, it was probably a much easier chance previous, and that red could have travelled a bit further and even gone safe, so it's not an easy shot with the rest. And he's missed it, and I think he's going to have left it as well.
White 29 points ahead. Oh, that was a poor one. A mistake that was pressure induced.
Yeah, a lot of head movement there. Didn't look convincing at all. Well, it's not the worst result for Jimmy. It could have finished a lot better for Stephen Maguire. But he is at the table again, and he's now got the opportunity to take the initiative in this little exchange at the end of this frame.
the other.
1.
White looks around at the scoreboard. It's yellow. That's red. Full level again.
Three. 4.
140 fighting bond. This game isn't what it used to be. But at the age of 60, Whirlwind retains power.
10. 12. 15.
I might actually cover them. Anything now.
19. 24. 30 in the frame. Jimmy White. Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah, I can't imagine too many more popular players than Jimmy White making the Barbican a fan's favourite everywhere. But the man in the opposite corner, Stephen Maguire, is a bit of an animal in this event. Gets to do very well in York. So a best of 3 now to see who goes through to the next round.
Frame 9. Steve McWhite break.
The balance. And Jimmy Robertson trails Zusi 4-2.
Oh, another cracker from the Whirlwind. It's a fantastic long red.
1. Rumble.
in the latter years of his career, I've heard Jimmy White
5.
say on many occasions when he's got into a good position like this, he's fallen victim to excitement.
6.
All about self-control as well as cue ball control.
$11. 12. 19. 20.
'It's all about
27.
moderating your pace around the table in these situations. You don't want to become too ponderous, but then again, you don't want to become too hasty.
$28.
Difficult little pack to go into as well, with a flat back. Plenty of action required on the white. Now, does the red pass the blue up into the corner?
35.
On the walk. Basically, when the red was going past the blue, he knew it had found the target.
$43.
The break 43 with, you would think, plenty more to come.
44.
A real story brewing here.
And perhaps a real storm brewing, Phil. The whirlwind. Playing some good stuff. And we've also got the tornado in
51.
action down south in the 900 event that's been going on recently, so nice to see Tony Drago still having a go, having a bash and still involved in the game.
Yeah, I saw Tony earlier this year in Fulda in Germany. We were out there for the European 9-ball Open, in which he competed. Of course, White's had his moments in 9-ball pool as well, being part of a Moscone Cup team.
52.
All good stuff, this.
Yeah, absolutely, and all came from that screaming long red that Jimmy knocked in, and the rest could be history if he can go on to clinch this frame and take him to being on the cusp of progressing through to the next round. Couple of reds in open play, so again, just needs to mind his work and just remain focused. Don't do anything
59.
careless.
$60.
At the interval, Maguire was playing nicely. I thought White was in danger of fizzling out. I was totally incorrect.
Yeah, he's dug deep, Jimmy.
65.
And he's chucked a few in tonight. Not hit some too well, but on the whole, he's looking very good. His 2 opening matches playing really well, and we're seeing glimpses of that again, and great to see.
This is frame ball. The break 73. That is also the lead.
73.
67 on the table, so Maguire needs a couple of snookers from here. That's if he gets the chance to get back to the table. After that, I'm sure the concession will arrive if and when White were to miss.
$81. $82.
That was a cultured shot, wasn't it? Let's see a century, Jimmy. Come on.
87.
Let's turn the clock back.
Thank you. 88. $95. $96.
"30 years on from claiming the UK Championship crown, Jimmy White still
103.
has the magic."
Jimmy White 103 on the frame.
The only word I can use for that break was vintage. Jimmy White hits the front for the first time since he won the opening frame. Stephen Maguire under a lot of pressure. A possible 2 frames left. The Scot has to win them both. If he doesn't, the progress of Jimmy White, the popular progress, will continue. Stephen, what a day it's been on this main match table. We've seen 3 enthralling matches, and I think in many respects we've left the best till last.
Yeah, I think on paper this morning we was eagerly awaiting all 3 matches, but this was the standout. Jimmy White against Stephen Maguire, 2 former champions of this event, and it's proving to be that. Maguire will be trying his hardest now to take us into a decider and give us some, well, not late night drama compared to last night, but some drama nonetheless.
And given the start he's made to the season, Maguire, which hasn't been stellar, if he were to gain 0 ranking points from the UK Championship, he's already falling down the rankings. He would be looking a little rocky going into 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Frame 10.
big moments for Maguire,
Jimmy White to break.
but also for Jimmy. The ranking points are greatly important for him also, so plenty at stake here. Not just a place at Judgment Day and a chance to qualify for the final stages of this Cazoo UK Championship.
Yeah, and just a reminder, whether it's Maguire or White, the winner will play either Lee Hang or Dominic Dale. That will be on Wednesday afternoon, starting at 1 o'clock local time.
So big shot coming up, welded to the cushion. Close. And got away with it, which is the main thing for him. Not left anything easy for Jimmy.
I can well imagine there's going to be lots and lots of viewers watching this intently. I can think of a couple who I know well, both good pals with Jimmy White, Neil Folds and Ken Doherty. If you're watching, fellows, he's doing pretty well, isn't he? Oh, and that was a fortunate double flick. Unless a plant has been left.
Wow, I think there has, and this could really open things up. Yeah, and that's not a bad kiss on the blue. And in playing that shot, nothing's cannon the black and put that safe, so that's still in play.
He's been involved in all of the game's big occasions over a very lengthy career, spanning 42 years as a professional. But he will be feeling it, there's no doubt about that. Winning matches still means an awful lot to him.
Well, it's just gone astray, that one. He was trying to just screw beyond the red, and difficult to judge when the red's so close to the pocket. So just needs to take his medicine now, play a good safety shot.
Full ball. Jimmy White, 4.
Tell you what, those 3 matches this afternoon that were suspended before the finish line, they've got a lengthy wait. The 8 matches that began at 7:30 this evening, none of them have yet reached a conclusion.
Foul.
Oh, another blow from Maguire.
Jimmy White, 5.
Yeah, and that was quite unlucky really. He's played a pretty aggressive safety shot there, trying to open things up, put Jimmy bang under it, but red's careering into the blue, knocking it in. And Jimmy can get through to this red to left corner, so another big shot coming up. Played with check side as well to avoid the pack of reds. That's a fantastic shot from Jimmy. Couldn't have played that much better.
I haven't seen him look this technically sound and also confident for quite some time. Suddenly found his old self since the interval.
4.
Yeah, he couldn't have hit that red any better really, over distance with the check side. He'll definitely be feeling the pressure, but you wouldn't think it. Just looking at him now, he's starting to really get through the white at the minute and hitting some nice shots. So good chance this.
Five.
I'm just guessing here, but Steve Maguire might be thinking in his chair, why do they always do this against me? Because when he played Zhang Anda in the English Open qualifiers last week, Zhang whitewashed Maguire 4-0 with breaks of 85, 101 and 64. Now it's White who's inspired. In the latter portion of his career, White so often raised hopes and then missed a ball. Oh, I didn't want to, but the harbinger of doom. I just felt that one might be.
The commentator's curse, Phil.
I just felt it.
You've absolutely done him. Yeah, there was a bit of movement on that, and he knew it. You could see the frustration after he'd delivered the cue straight away. Yeah, you can feel his pain on that one because he was 1 or 2 shots away from being in perfect position. Now then, Stephen, good chance.
Eight. Nine.
That was nicely played, and look at these reds, look at these colours. He should put together a sizable contribution here. Even though he's trailing, we shouldn't forget he's made breaks of 76, 100 and 108.
15. Sixteen.
Yeah, nothing to do with the Reds. They're all
23.
in great positions, so just needs to mind close control of that cue ball.
24.
Make the next shot as easy as possible. Obviously there's pressure out there and Doesn't want to ask himself too many questions at this stage of the match. Try and keep it simple.
$31. $32.
A 5-minute walk from here is the Crucible Theatre, where in 1994 Jimmy White famously missed a black off its spot when it looked as though his World Championship hoodoo was about to be broken. In this frame, it's the black that's gone
39.
astray again. Will it lead to a decider?
$40.
Oh, that's not inch perfect for Maguire. He's going to have to get this cue ball travelling to come back down the table for position on the reds. So just choosing to drop it in and
46.
leave a mid-distance red.
Oh,
Stephen Maguire,
concentrating
26.
on the positional cannon. The pot did not find the target, and so White is reprieved.
Yeah, I just felt it was missable, that red. He was
1.
just the wrong side of the pink. Just misjudged the cannon to leave himself a missable red, and could be costly.
I'm feeling nervous vicariously
8.
for Jimmy.
Yeah,
9.
and that was a better shot than it looked. A thin little cut back into a blind pocket. So there's just that one red towards the left side of the table. It's not safe, but
16.
the positional side needs to be pretty perfect. Get somewhere in behind it. Just coming round to look at it. Wants to be right on it. Try and leave himself the best chance of doing as little as possible with the white. Make sure of the pots.
17.
Yeah, and he looks to have run the wrong side of straight. Well, he's bang straight on that pink. That's no good to him. So a big shot on the blue. A touch of angle to get somewhere over the left side of the table. Well, he's taking the 6, possibly playing the double on the red.
23.
Oh, he was walking.
He thought he'd nailed it.
Wide. 23.
We both did as well. A fraction away. Now though, Stephen, the pendulum has swung.
Jimmy's needs a good contact on this red. Yellow's a big ball. If he hits the red from behind, which I'm sure he's planning to do, needs to try and send it beyond the balk line. Yeah, that's a great shot. Just wants to slow up, but it's not going to, so Maguire is going to get a chance at this red, albeit a difficult long red. He'll be taking this on, just running through 2 for the black.
Foul.
Oh, you can't get much closer
Jimmy
to the
White
pot than
4.
that. Cue ball going in as well.
And now, although it's from distance, another chance for White.
These are the sort of shots you practice day in, day out. Unfortunately though, you don't have the same sort of pressure on the practice table. Now then, Jimmy, one good piece of cue in here. Shot.
1.
Every respect. Every respect. Perfectly on the brown. 4 in front. Make that 8. Yellow to blue will do.
Yeah, this is a big win for Jimmy.
5.
Should he go on to make the clearance?
7. 10. 14.
This is it, folks. This is it. The blue to prevail.
Yeah, every credit.
19.
Every credit to Jimmy. He's really dug deep in this game. He's not been his best at times, but
25 frame.
that's a fabulous win.
Jimmy White.
Isn't that tremendous? Good sportsmanship from Stephen Maguire as well, who holds Jimmy White in the highest regard. The man is 60 years of age. He's been a professional for 2/3 of his life, and still he loves to win, especially against big-name opponents like the Scot. That was entrancing to watch towards the end. When he was 3-1 down at the interval, I didn't give him much chance at all. The big turning point was the 57 clearance in frame 6 to nick it by a single point. He also made a century in the 9th, and now it's thumbs up for the Whirlwind, who defeats Stephen Maguire by 6 frames to 4. He will now have one more match to qualify for the final stages of this Cazoo UK Championship. It will be on Wednesday afternoon. Please tune in for that at 1 o'clock local time. We still don't know his opponent. It will be Lee Hang or Dominic Dale. They're currently tied at 4 frames each. Well, that concludes what's been a tremendous day of action here in the qualifiers at the Ponds Forge International Centre in the heart of Sheffield. We saw a 6-5 win this morning for Tepchaya Anu over Martin O'Donnell. Then Marco Fu, he defeated Oliver Lyons, repelling quite a comeback. And then the best story of the day was reserved for late on. Confirmation, Jimmy White defeats Stephen Maguire by 6 frames to 4. Brilliant stuff. The veteran is victorious. It just remains for me, Phil Yates, on behalf of my colleagues Stephen Hallworth and David Hendon, to say thanks very much for joining us today. We'll be back here bright and early tomorrow morning at 9:30 local time for 3 more matches in this third qualifying round. I can tell you tomorrow morning we start off with Zhou Yulong against another White, Michael White. And I'll tell you, after that, they've got something to live up to. For now, though, a very good evening.
Golden Derby. Wear a neck, heavy through that. Heavy through that. The petty Ulfric.
Great sporting events make great stories. On Discovery Plus, watch Lycra Warriors battle.
It has been a blockbuster.
Hot shots fire.
The legend.
Sharpshooters strike.
Ronnie O'Sullivan is in 7th heaven.
And thrill seekers zoom. There's live sport for everyone on Discovery Plus.